This is the disgusting story of Spain's most perverted king. Welcome back, everyone. Here, we bring you the craziest and weirdest facts from human history. Viewer discretion is advised for this video, as some of this content is offensive and disturbing. We, the makers of this channel, in no way support or condone the actions of the subjects featured in our videos. Today we will look at the dark life of Spain's King Ferdinand VII. He is often referred to as one of the most perverted kings in history. But was he really that bad? Let's find out. The troubled beginnings. Ferdinand was born in 1784, the son of King Charles III of Spain, and his wife, Queen Maria Luisa of Parma. However, doubts swirled about his true parentage from the start. His mother, Maria Luisa, was infamous throughout the Spanish court for her numerous lovers and affairs. Whispers persisted that Ferdinand might not be Charles's biological son, but the child of her powerful favorite, Manuel de Godoy, Duke of Berwick. These rumors dogged Ferdinand throughout his life, stemming from his striking resemblance to Godoy and fueling doubts about his legitimacy. This turbulent atmosphere of palace gossip and rivalries likely contributed to Ferdinand's deeply insecure and ambitious nature. From an early age, he learned the art of intrigue and maneuvering in a court where few relationships were genuine, and every interaction was fraught with hidden motives. Napoleon's invasion and Ferdinand's rise. When Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Spain in 1808, Ferdinand found himself caught in a web of conflicting loyalties. Tensions between Spain's ruling dynasty and Napoleon's ambitions in Europe were high. The French emperor saw Spain as crucial to his plans for dominating the continent. With his vast empire on the brink of collapse, Charles IV hesitated, unsure of how to respond to the crisis. Ferdinand, however, saw an opportunity to seize power. Eager for the throne, he led a palace coup, forcing his indecisive father to abdicate, and proclaimed himself King of Spain and Portugal. But Napoleon Bonaparte outmaneuvered him, inviting Ferdinand and his family to Bayonne under the guise of negotiations, then stripped him of his crown, placing his brother Joseph on the throne as the new King of Spain. This humiliating defeat sent Ferdinand into exile in France for the next 6 years, years in exile. For 6 long years, Ferdinand languished in French captivity. Stripped of his power and dignity, Napoleon's hold on Europe was at its zenith, and Spain seemed destined to remain under French domination. During this time, resentment and bitterness grew within Ferdinand, shaping his mindset in profound ways. Living in the shadow of his dethroned status, he plotted and schemed, waiting for his chance to reclaim the throne and exact his revenge on his rivals and those who had wronged him. The experiences of exile, humiliation, and betrayal forged a deep-seated determination in Ferdinand's heart. He began to view anyone who had played a role in his downfall as an enemy. His thoughts were consumed with strategizing, plotting, and dreaming of the day when he could return to Spain and restore his authority. The long-awaited return. Finally, in 1814, Napoleon's grip on power began to crumble, paving the way for Ferdinand's return to Spain. After 6 long years of exile, Ferdinand set foot in Spain once again in 1814, greeted by scenes of euphoria and celebration. Crowds thronged the streets, cheering his name and hailing him as their long-awaited savior. Church bells rang out across the land, and a sense of hope and relief swept through the populace. For many Spaniards, Ferdinand represented the dawn of a new era, the end of French occupation, and the restoration of their beloved nation. They had endured years of hardship, oppression, and uncertainty under Napoleon's rule. Ferdinand's return symbolized the return of their country and their traditions, but their adulation was misplaced. The man they had lifted onto the throne was not the savior they imagined, the tyrant exposed. Almost immediately upon his return, Ferdinand revealed his true colors, shattering any hopes for a benevolent ruler. His first act was to abolish the liberal constitution of 1812, which had been a beacon of progress and reform during the bleak days of French occupation. The document had promised freedoms and representation, offering a vision of a modern, enlightened Spain. But Ferdinand rejected its principles, opting instead to reinstate absolute monarchy, silencing critics and ordering the arrest of intellectuals, reformers, and even priests who dared to challenge his authority. His regime became synonymous with fear and repression, the obsession with perversion. As Ferdinand tightened his grip on power and silenced opposition, his bizarre personal proclivities came to the forefront, shocking and repulsing those around him. Rumors swirled, and tales spread of his peculiar obsessions and degrading amusements. The palace walls bore witness to his strange rituals and lurid displays. Ferdinand delighted in filling his chambers with obscene artwork, commissioning lewd paintings, and collecting pornographic miniatures that he proudly flaunted before bewildered guests. He amassed figurines sculpted in explicit positions, proudly displaying them as though they were priceless artifacts. In private moments, he was said to have reveled in parading these grotesque objects before unsuspecting visitors, deriving sadistic pleasure from their shocked and disgusted reactions. There was a macabre fascination in his eyes as he pointed out the lewd details, reveling in the discomfort of those around him. These disturbing habits became a source of morbid fascination and gossip throughout the court. Whispers echoed through the halls as courtiers exchanged nervous glances, each trying to outdo the other in recounting the most lurid tales of the king's bizarre behavior, marriage as humiliation. Adding to the grotesque tapestry of Ferdinand's reign was his treatment of marriage as a mere spectacle of cruelty and degradation. He entered into multiple marriages, each becoming a public exhibition of his perverse tendencies. His first wife, Princess Maria Antonia of Naples, reportedly despised him, referring to him in private as both cowardly and obscene. She met an untimely end, leaving behind whispers of foul play and speculation that Ferdinand had been involved in her demise. His subsequent marriages brought no stability or happiness. He wed Maria Isabella of Braganza, Maria Louise of the Two Sicilies, and finally, Maria Cristina of the Two Sicilies. Each of these unions became a stage for his perverse games, leaving his wives traumatized and isolated. Courtiers spoke in hushed tones of Ferdinand's twisted desires, claiming that he derived pleasure from humiliating his young brides and subjecting them to degrading rituals. Tales emerged of forced degradation, non-consensual acts, and a complete disregard for the emotional well-being of his partners. These accounts painted a horrifying picture of a man who viewed marriage not as a bond of love and commitment, but as a means of exerting dominance and inflicting pain. The secrecy surrounding these events allowed rumors to flourish, creating an aura of fear and uncertainty among the royal women. Ferdinand's wives became pawns in his twisted game of power and control, trapped within the suffocating walls of his perverse fantasies, losing an empire as Ferdinand reveled in his twisted pleasures and subjected his wives to his degrading whims. Spain's overseas empire crumbled before his apathetic gaze. One by one, the nation's vast holdings in the Americas slipped away as revolutionary fervor swept across the colonies. Ferdinand, consumed by his personal demons and oblivious to the plight of his kingdom, failed to rally the nation to save its crumbling empire. Venezuela, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, and many others broke free from Spain's grasp, declaring their independence and charting their own paths to freedom. Ferdinand's detachment from reality was complete as he squandered his resources on court luxuries, empty entertainments, and bribes for his cronies. By the mid 1820s, Spain's overseas empire had shrunk dramatically, and the nation was left diminished, its power and prestige in tatters. Ferdinand's refusal to acknowledge the gravity of the situation or take decisive action resulted in the loss of a vast empire and the weakening of his own kingdom, a cruel legacy. As Ferdinand's reign plunged Spain into turmoil and decline, his own mortality loomed on the horizon. On June 29th, 1833, he breathed his last breath, succumbing to the ravages of gout and illness. At the age of 49, his demise left behind a kingdom teetering on the brink of civil war and a legacy of infamy. The seeds of discord he had sown during his lifetime bore bitter fruit after his death, as conservative factions rallied around his brother, Don Carlos, while liberals championed his daughter, Maria Isabella, as the rightful heir. The ensuing Carlist wars engulfed Spain in violence and bloodshed, further weakening the nation. Ferdinand's passing did little to alleviate the suffering he had inflicted during his lifetime. His death was not a release for the people of Spain. Rather, it marked the beginning of a new chapter of hardship and division. Ferdinand VII departed this world, leaving behind a trail of destruction, humiliation, and despair. His actions had profound consequences, not only for Spain, but for the course of history. Ferdinand VII, the so-called Desired One, turned out to be a tyrant, driven by his own perverse desires. He had disastrous effects for his country. The loss of its empire and his insatiable appetites made him a mockery among European rulers. Ferdinand VII remains one of the most controversial figures in history, and his name echoes through time as a symbol of unchecked power and the dangers of unchecked appetites. Whether he was truly as depraved as the gossip portrayed him is uncertain. Still, his actions as a ruler tarnished Spain's reputation and left a lasting impact on the course of the nation's history. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.